Today. Oh my, it's definitely, you'd have to take avocados.
Yeah.
He wasn't born in Hollywood. He didn't come from fame, fortune, or even a plan. Just a boy from Southwest London who could dance, flip, and dream. But one audition would change everything. Overnight, Tom Holland became the face of a billion-dollar empire. The youngest Avenger, the new Spider-Man, the world's hero. Yet behind the suit, behind the smiles and applause, was a young man struggling to hold on to something far greater than fame: himself. He grew up under the blinding light of the Marvel Universe, where one mistake could become a headline and one tear could go viral. From the stage of Billy Elliot to the skyscrapers of New York, he carried the weight of expectation on shoulders, still learning what adulthood meant. This is not just the story of Spider-Man. It's the story of the boy who became him, and the man still trying to live beyond the mask. Before the cameras, before the costume, there was just Tom, a small, energetic boy growing up in Kingston-upon-Thames, a quiet town by the River Thames in England. Born on June 1st, 1996, to Dominic and Nicola Holland, creativity was in his blood. His father, a stand-up comedian and writer, knew the pain of chasing dreams that didn't always pay. His mother, a photographer, saw the world through compassion and light. Together, they built a home where imagination was never laughed at, only encouraged. Tom wasn't the loudest or the biggest in the room, but he was the one who couldn't stop moving, dancing, jumping, pretending. At 9 years old, he fell in love with hip-hop and rhythm, and soon found himself enrolled in Nifty Feet Dance School in London. That decision would change everything. When other kids mocked him for dancing, calling it girly, Tom's mother stood firm. She told him, "If it makes you happy, you keep going." And he did. Day after day, through sweat and teasing, he danced. It was during one of those school performances that a choreographer spotted him, a spark of talent that couldn't be ignored. Months later, he was auditioning for Billy Elliot the Musical on London's West End. Hundreds tried. Few succeeded. Tom, with his raw energy and fearless movement, did. Behind the applause, however, was still a little boy trying to balance homework, exhaustion, and the pressure of performing before he'd even reached his teens. But every night when the curtain fell and the lights dimmed, his parents were there, waiting. Their car rides home were quiet but full of warmth, because in that moment, before Hollywood, before Spider-Man, there was just a family, believing in their son's small, impossible dream. The stage of Billy Elliot was more than a show. It was a test of endurance. For nearly 2 years, Tom Holland performed 8 times a week, soaring through the air in perfect choreography, balancing laughter and exhaustion. He was still just a boy, but he carried himself with the discipline of a man twice his age. Casting directors noticed. One of them whispered to a filmmaker about a young dancer who could express emotion, not just through words, but through silence. That whisper would reach Spanish director J.A. Bayona, who was searching for a child actor capable of portraying unimaginable fear and strength in a film called The Impossible. Tom auditioned quietly, humbly. No agent, no Hollywood polish, just honesty. When Bayona saw the tape, he said, "That's not acting. That's truth." At only 16, Tom was cast as Lucas Bennett, a boy trapped in the devastation of the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. Filming in Thailand was brutal. Underwater sequences, physical pain, emotional exhaustion. But something awakened inside him. He didn't just play survival. He lived it. When the movie premiered in 2012, critics around the world took notice. A newcomer from England had delivered one of the most powerful performances of the year. The Hollywood Reporter called him a revelation. Naomi Watts, his on-screen mother, said, "He reminded me why I fell in love with acting." But while the spotlight grew brighter, Tom stayed the same. He returned home, went back to school, played football with friends who treated him like nothing had changed. Only now, when he walked past a cinema and saw his face on the poster, he realized the world was starting to notice. He wasn't famous yet, but the door had opened, and just behind it was Destiny wearing a red and blue suit. By 2015, Tom Holland was chasing a dream that didn't even seem possible. Marvel Studios was secretly searching for the next Spider-Man, a role that would define a generation. More than 7,000 young actors auditioned. Most never even heard back. Tom sent in his tape. He performed his lines, did a flip, and waited. Weeks passed. Silence. Then, a call. Marvel wants to see you again. 6 auditions. Countless flights between London and Los Angeles. Scenes with Robert Downey Jr. Improvisations with Chris Evans. Every test, every moment, was a heartbeat closer to destiny. And then, nothing. Until one ordinary morning, he opened Instagram and saw Marvel had posted it. "Welcome to the family, Tom Holland, our new Spider-Man." He didn't even know before the world did. The news exploded across the internet. A 19-year-old boy had just inherited a billion-dollar mantle, and with it, the weight of millions of fans. Some doubted him. Others called him too young. But the first time he swung across the screen in Captain America, Civil War, the world fell silent. The kid had arrived. The years that followed were a blur of flashing lights, press tours, and red carpets. Tom became the beating heart of Marvel's next era, bringing humor, innocence, and vulnerability to a hero the world thought it already knew. Fans called him the most human Spider-Man. Directors praised his dedication, doing his own stunts, landing flips between takes. Robert Downey Jr. took him under his wing, on screen and off, becoming the mentor he never expected. By the time Spider-Man: No Way Home premiered, Tom was no longer just a rising actor. He was a symbol, a reminder that even the youngest heroes can carry the heaviest stories. But behind the laughter and applause, the pressure was quietly building. Because when the world sees you as a superhero, it's easy to forget you're still human. At first, fame felt like a dream. Flashing cameras, roaring crowds, and the thrill of being everyone's hero. But the higher Tom Holland climbed, the thinner the air became. The Marvel machine never stopped. Press tours blurred into premieres. Fans demanded more. Studios wanted bigger. Every smile had to be perfect. Every answer rehearsed. And in between it all, there was barely time to breathe. Tom became a favorite on social media. Charming, spontaneous, endlessly quoted. But that openness came with a price. He was nicknamed the Spoiler King, after accidentally revealing plot secrets during interviews. What began as harmless fun soon turned into headlines, memes, and scrutiny. Every word he spoke became news. Every private moment, public. He was only in his early 20s, yet carried the pressure of a global franchise. Paparazzi followed him everywhere. Rumors about his relationships swirled online. Fans dissected his expressions, his body language, his silence. The internet that once loved him now demanded pieces of him he could never give. Behind closed doors, Tom began to struggle with anxiety and exhaustion. He admitted, "Sometimes I feel like I'm losing myself in the noise." And for the first time, the boy who made the world smile didn't know how to smile for himself. In 2022, he made a decision that shocked fans: to step away from social media completely. His message was simple: "I find Instagram and Twitter to be overstimulating and overwhelming. I need to take care of my mental health." It wasn't a scandal of betrayal or addiction. It was the quietest kind, the battle no one sees. Because sometimes the most painful fall isn't from a building. It's from the version of yourself you can no longer recognize. When the noise faded, Tom Holland did something most stars never dare to do. He stopped. No cameras, no press, no costuming, just silence. For the first time in years, he was able to breathe without pretending to be someone else. The break gave him space to rebuild. Not his career, but himself. He began exploring new roles that scared him, roles that forced him to dig deeper than ever before. In Cherry, 2021, directed by the Russo brothers, Tom played a traumatized war veteran battling addiction. Gone was the cheerful boy hero. In his place, a raw and broken man staring back at himself. The critics were divided, but Tom didn't care. For him, it wasn't about praise. It was about honesty. He spoke openly about sobriety, about learning to find calm after years of chaos. He trained, rested, and learned what it meant to say no. And standing quietly beside him through it all was Zendaya. Not as a co-star, but as a grounding force. She reminded him that peace wasn't found in applause, but in stillness. Together they built boundaries. They kept their love private, sacred, untouchable. Then came The Crowded Room, a psychological drama about trauma, identity, and healing. Tom not only acted but also produced the series, taking creative control for the first time. It was his way of saying, "I'm more than a superhero. I'm a storyteller." After filming Wrapped, he revealed that he was taking a full year off to recover emotionally. It wasn't an exit, it was evolution. Because true redemption doesn't come from fame or success, it comes from knowing when to let go and when to begin again. Tom Holland's legacy isn't measured in box office numbers or magazine covers. It's in how he made people believe again. He reminded the world that heroes could be awkward, kind, and flawed, and still be extraordinary. For millions of young fans, Tom became more than just Spider-Man. He was proof that humility could survive in Hollywood, that you could be playful, honest, and real, without losing your soul in the process. Directors praised his discipline, his respect on set, his quiet professionalism. Co-stars described him as the first to arrive, the last to leave. Behind the scenes, he was the one checking in on crew members, remembering names, asking if people were okay. The same boy who once danced in school halls now inspired a generation to follow their dreams without shame. But perhaps his greatest impact came through authenticity. He spoke openly about mental health, anxiety, and the importance of self-care. Issues young audiences rarely heard discussed by their idols. He turned vulnerability into strength. Beyond the screen, Tom and his family founded the Brothers Trust, a charity supporting organizations that help children, animals, and vulnerable communities. He used his fame not to build walls, but bridges. In an industry often built on illusion, Tom's greatest performance was simply being himself. And in doing so, he changed what it means to be a modern hero. One who saves not with webs or powers, but with empathy. As the world slowed down, Tom Holland finally learned what peace really felt like. No crowds, no interviews. Just quiet mornings at home, coffee, his dog, the sound of rain against the windows. He often said, "For the first time, I'm not chasing anything. I'm just living." He spent more time with his brothers, playing golf, watching football, enjoying the simple rhythm of being ordinary. He learned that fulfillment doesn't always come from applause. Sometimes it's found in stillness, in family, in knowing who you are when no one's watching. Fame had once been everything. Now it was just a small part of his life. He spoke often about balance, mental health, and giving back. Messages that resonated with millions trying to find themselves in a world of pressure and perfection. Zendaya became a quiet anchor through it all. Together they found comfort in privacy, celebrating victories quietly, weathering storms together, away from the cameras. They didn't need to prove their love to anyone. It simply existed, real, grounded, unshakable. Tom once reflected, "If all this ended tomorrow, I'd still be grateful, because I've already lived a dream bigger than I ever imagined." The boy who once danced on small London stages had found something far more important than fame: peace of mind, purpose, and perspective. And in that stillness, Tom Holland finally stopped playing the hero, because he had become one in his own life. In the end, every story about a hero is really a story about a human being, one who learns, stumbles, and rises again. Tom Holland's journey began on a small stage, with a boy who simply loved to dance. That same boy would one day fly across skyscrapers, save worlds, and carry the hearts of millions. But his greatest act of courage was taking off the mask, because behind the fame, behind the suit, behind the carefully rehearsed smiles, was a young man searching for balance, honesty, and peace. He didn't just grow up in front of the world, he grew through it. He turned mistakes into lessons, pressure into purpose, and fear into compassion. Today, Tom Holland stands not as the world's Spider-Man, but as something far rarer. A reminder that strength doesn't come from superpowers. It comes from staying kind in a world that forgets how. The cameras may fade, the franchises may end. But somewhere in a quiet London morning, a boy still dances. And that boy reminds us, you don't need to wear a mask to be a hero. Sometimes, just being yourself is enough.